What did you think you'd never have to explain to a grown adult? Why do people keep inventing new languages? They only make communication much more complicated. Yesterday, I had to explain to my mother that great majority of the languages was not invented by a single person. Why there are no live recordings of Mozart from when he was still alive. That when you fax something, the paper doesn't actually go anywhere. They thought it sends the paper, and not a copy of it. That Canada was its own, separate country and not part of the United States. Their reason, but they speak English and British Columbia doesn't look foreign. Do you have a job that the average person doesn't even know exists? I cut eyes out of dead people. I am an eye bank technician. I surgically remove corneas and whole eyes from donors for cornea transplants and research. I think most people don't want to know about my job. My field is medical illustration. I specifically do medical legal work for courtroom purposes. When I travel by airplane, I just claim to be a bartender again as it gets a little dull explaining over and over. On the plus side, I know what you look like on the inside. I make pig feed. They aren't just fed corn, there's a lot of science involved. Their diets change almost monthly with the weather, so we are constantly changing the nutrients we give them. Also, a little fact that blows my mind, pigs naturally will bite each other's tails off as a dominance thing like squirrels. However, simply increasing their magnesium in the diet will make them not bite each other. For some reason it has a calming effect. Buffet workers, what are your horror stories? My first job was as a dishwasher in an all-you-can-eat fried catfish buffet. People are animals, especially the ones that get far more food off the buffet than they can eat. Then they take the leftovers and pile them on a plate or tray, cover in ketchup and tartar sauce, then pour their iced tea over the top of all that. A lot of people did that, got at least 2 plates like that a night. I was walking to a chocolate fountain and 3 little girls step in front of me, and they all just go hands deep in the fountain. The family was the first table by the fountain, and all they did was laugh about how cute it was. Employees turned it off immediately. We had a Chinese buffet shut down for a health code violation because an employee was cutting veggies while pooping. To this day, I still wonder if that means he brought a bucket into the kitchen or veggies into the toilet, and I honestly don't know which is worse. Doctors, what are the creepiest last words you've heard? I overheard an old lady whisper this to her old husband dying of kidney problems. You are going to beat this, you got away with murder, this is nothing. My grandfather on his deathbed said they have no eyes, still give me chills. My mom was watching over my great-grandfather in the hospital. He'd been unresponsive for a day or so, when suddenly he said, "It's about damn time you got here, I've been waiting," and then he died. Patient was on comfort cares, on a high dose of morphine and hallucinating. She would alternate between grasping for things not there and trying to climb out of bed. She was too unsteady to walk, so my job was to sit in the room and make sure she was safe. She tried to get up and I went to ask her what she needed. She grabbed my arm and pulled me down towards her face and said, very angrily, "Kill me." That one messed with me for a while. Tattoo artists, why did you refuse to do a tattoo? I was getting a tattoo once when a guy came in and said that he wanted a tattoo on his neck of a leprechaun sitting on a mushroom smoking a bong. The artist very politely told the guy to go home and really think about it. The guy I get my tattoos from turns down young people who want blurry tattoos as their first tattoo. This is face, hands, and neck, anywhere visible while fully clothed. I think this is a good policy. My ex-wife and I got turned down for matching wedding ring tattoos. I was a mechanic and couldn't really wear my ring while working, so I used to lose it a lot. Seemed like a great solution. They refused us because I guess the marriages never worked out. Turns out she was cheating the entire relationship, so I owe that place. Glad we didn't look elsewhere. Doctors, what is the most unethical thing you have done or seen? It's gotta be Robert Courtney. He diluted cancer chemotherapy drugs for years to make profit. Countless deaths, countless needless treatments, countless cancer study data rendered useless by one man. My best friend's mother, Rula, is from Lebanon. When Rula was a young girl, she got pretty badly injured and went to the hospital. The doctor then proceeded to tell Rula's mother that she had passed away due to the injuries. She did not believe her and soon discovered Rula locked in a closet, waiting to presumably be sold into slavery. In the hospital I work at, there are many returning patients with some very serious social issues like being homeless. Sometimes, when the psych unit gets tired of them, they buy them a bus ticket and send them somewhere far away so that they'll be someone else's problem. What is the ballsiest thing you've ever handed in as a project in school? In English, we had to memorize a work by an inspirational person. I went after people that did excerpts from MLK speeches and presidents' memoirs. I memorized There's a Rocket in My Pocket by Dr. Seuss. I don't remember my grade, but the looks on everyone's face will always remain with me. Senior year of high school, a good friend of mine stood up in English class and recited the intro verse to Lose Yourself by Eminem in place of regular poetry we were supposed to be writing ourselves. Teacher thought it was about him wanting to be a comedian and loved it. I'm still amazed to this day how the class collectively kept it together. When I was in 7th grade, I played a ton of PlayStation 1 video games. We had to do mini book reports on our choice of books, so instead of doing my reports on books, I did them on the video games I was playing, like Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil. It worked. They never seemed to notice. Doctors, what's the strangest case you knew you'd never see again? Had a guy bouncing around clinics for years, if not decades, with nonspecific back pain. It affects millions of patients, so the typical thing is rest, stretch, ice, maybe over-the-counter meds, and go about your life. Well, when he got to us, he mentioned he never had any imaging, so we do a regular x-ray of his back. Sure enough, there's a small caliber bullet lodged near where the rib meets his spinal column. Apparently, he had been near a drive-by shooting decades ago and was shot, but thought he just cut his back while jumping over something to get cover and never had it checked out. I had a patient who actually weighed 1,068 pounds, or 484 kilograms. His BMI was higher than his nurse's weight. He was in his 30s, he came in with presumed septic shock, and to get a 30 cubic centimeters per kilogram bolus would have been about 16 liters. He ended up with negative blood cultures, and we never found out why his blood pressure got so low. He couldn't fit in any CT scanner. One thought was he got so large his weight collapsed his large veins, but we really have no idea. I had a patient who came in with a toothache on his front tooth. He had used a power drill and attempted to perform a root canal on himself. It had failed to achieve the desired result. What screams I am terrible with money? Getting fancy coffee and donuts every morning for breakfast, then begging your parents to pay for all of your kids' things because you're poor. When someone asks you how much interest you're paying on your credit card, and you respond none, and they seem shocked. People with low-wage jobs spending almost their entire paycheck on their car payment. My former coworkers are all terrible with money. The big sign was always shown when they bitched about how they couldn't wait for payday because they need gas in their car as soon as possible. In the same conversation, they talk about how they spent $40 the night before on shit that could have waited, such as new clothes, jewelry, beer, or candy. Single mothers wearing designer clothes while their kids look like they've been living out of a clothing donation bin. Doctors, what's the worst example of patients trying to self-medicate? At a get-together with friends where the wine drinking got out of hand, I had a friend burn himself on the oven while making pizza, then try to cauterize the wound with his lighter. I had a patient who came in saying that she had a sore throat, so she took her cat's expired antibiotics and wanted to know why she wasn't getting better. I'm not a doctor, but I work at a surgical eye clinic. The worst I think I've ever seen was someone wore their contacts for 3 months straight. It was gross. Remember, guys, take out your contacts at night and wash them like you were told to do. Guy came in with a deep laceration to the leg. Genius decided he would super glue the wound shut. It became infected and then gangrene set in. He then waited until his leg was a greenish black before coming in. He lost the leg.